Hey, everybody, welcome into the latest episode of the best damn pod in the land. Chad Stryker, Dan Divjak here, man. Dan is coming to us live from his tropical private island, which is not near Epstein's Island, um, and in Florida. That was a joke. Dan, tell us about Florida. How is it? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, if it was Epstein's Island, that would make me a Team Up North fan, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
easy pickings there, dude.
Yeah, or Oregon.
I couldn't be better, man. We're in our own little slice of heaven down here, paradise, and
Yeah.
weather's been amazing. Ironically, it's the skies are getting ready to open up right now. The water was really rough this morning.
Mm.
Got down there for a little bit. Mila's still warming up to the beach. She likes the pool a lot more, and yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.
Ready to storm. Little 45-minute thunder, storm burst.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, as I told you
Ready to
before
go.
the show started, we were looking to buy a permanent home in Florida because we had our winter home, and then Hurricane Ian happened. So, no Florida home for us right now. But Dan looks extra smart because he's got a Hemingway poster in the background. So, which I actually think is really cool. So Dan, speaking of the Buckeyes, man,
So it's only a look, man, because I had no clue that was a Hemingway poster in the background.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I was trying to correlate like Buckeyes being intelligent, to the to the Hemingway poster. So we'll roll with that. We'll roll with
school
that.
guy here.
Yeah, same. I had public university too, just like you. So all right. So over the weekend on Saturday, I was walking around a vintage market, staring at my YouTube, watching Riley Pettijohn commit to Ohio State. And Dan, a month ago, you and I were like, no way, man. Maybe it was in May. We were like, it's cool that he's talking to us. It's cool that he took a visit. Gonna be really hard to pull him out of Texas. So tell us what you know.
I mean, it's a huge get, I mean, James is showing his chops on the recruiting trail. It's a phenomenal get for us. I mean, I think he's consensusly, is that a word? Here we go. Man.
Consensus.
Hemingway poster that I knew nothing about in public school. He was ranked as the number one linebacker for his group. It's a huge get. I mean, we have not got guys like that in a while from outside of Ohio, and he's
I love
one
it.
of many in this
I love
class.
it. Mm-hmm. I love it. I mean, you pair him with Alford and Lee, and you get him on the heels of the Justin Hill kind of flip, I'll call it, because I definitely felt like he was in the class. I mean, gosh, it makes me feel so much better about this linebacker class, and he's fast, fast for a linebacker, and he'll hit you.
Yeah, no, I think this is probably the best class we've had since, was Raekwon and Dante in the same class together? Dante Booker,
yeah.
Ignatius. So, I mean, it's the best linebacking class we've had in a long time, and it's a different kind of linebacker. I mean, Eli is your traditional thumper. I think Eli's going to be way better than a lot of people are giving him credit for, based solely on his ranking. But when you look at Alford and Pettijohn, the athleticism that they bring to that position, is something that we haven't seen in a long time. I think we're going to get a glimpse of it this year with the guys that we have with Cody and Sonny and CJ. But these guys are, I mean, you're looking at 2 top 5 linebackers in the country from outside of Ohio, choosing Ohio State. James Laurinitus is earning his chops.
Absolutely. I wanted to parallel that with something. So we, as Ohio State fans, I want you to think about this. We went from a converted running back in Steel Chambers starting for a few years on Ohio State's defense to now pulling 2 of the top 10 linebackers in the country in this recruiting class under James Laurinitus. So in 2 years, he, so James wasn't even a full-time assistant last year, you want to talk about flipping the mattress over and starting afresh. There you are. I
Well, I
like it
mean,
a lot.
let's be honest about what James was up against. I mean, we lost KVA last year. He was a silent commit to Ohio State in the last minute. Um, he spoke to God and Notre Dame got him. And the only reason that happened is because Marcus Freeman and Al Golden I don't want to say negatively recruited, because I think it was fair in the sense that, they questioned whether James was even going to be on the staff. I mean, he was still a GA at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And, up
Oh
until
yes,
January, he wasn't allowed to go on the road and recruit. And guys use
right.
that against him. So for him to get these two guys in particular out of Florida and Texas in less than a full cycle, is just
Yep,
phenomenal.
yep. I
Phenomenal.
agree with you. And I wanted to pin something here about this linebacking class. And obviously Justin Hill committed to Alabama. And Dan, you and I talked a lot about Justin Hill, and I wanted to ask your perspective. If this year, let's say I'm going to utilize Arvell Reese in this scenario, Ohio State can put the jack on full display, on full blast, lots of tape, lots of use, lots of ways to see how he would be used. Can they get back in the Justin Hill race if he doesn't have to look at film from Oklahoma State on how they would use him?
I think so. I think what people need to realize and accept is that, there was also a very strong family connection to Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know
I
that.
know I've been, I've said that his mother grew up an Ohio State fan and then kind of jumped on the Bama bandwagon, because of his stepfather. But I don't know how long that's been the case. And when you look at her
Mm-hmm.
Instagram page, I mean, she's all Bama,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I do think that, we had him until the whole Larry Johnson thing happened over the last couple of weeks before his announcement.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I can't imagine that he will not be at a number of games this year. I'm hearing that,
Mm-hmm.
him and Trey McNutt and Malik Atrey and those guys are all planning on being at the Ohio State Michigan game. So, I know they're not going to stop recruiting him.
No,
Can we
I
flip
know.
one?
I
I
agree
don't
with
know.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I have
that
zero
that question
expectations in
that
regards
question
to that.
came. Hmm. Yeah, that question came from one of our followers on Twitter. So, and I wanted to pose it to you. I know we didn't put it in our notes. It was just something, and I thought, you and I talked kind of the opposite, that if he committed to Ohio State and then we don't use the jack and he flips at the end, we didn't use the jack. So like there was nothing for him to see. So this is kind of that opposite scenario where he committed to Bama. And then, there's a lot of football to be played too. And I keep telling people that to some of these commits that have gone a little bit of everywhere. There's a lot of football to be played, a lot of NOAs to come out, so before December gets here.
Yeah, for sure. And, it, long ways to go, man. Long ways to go.
Yeah.
I do think it would have been easier for him to commit to us and then flip if we didn't use the position
Mm-hmm.
than it would have been for him to commit to Bama like he did and flip back because we did. I I I don't like the position that we're in with him, but who knows, man? I mean,
Mm-hmm. Well,
I've stopped trying to figure out what motivates these kids.
yeah. I've been accused of being a homer a little bit here and there, so that's probably I'm a little more glass half full. I mean, if you've watched, and a lot of people have been watching us for any length of time now, that I'm a glass half full guy. I try to, I'm probably on the Bill Kurelic side of things where I'm probably a little too positive sometimes, but I'm okay
I mean,
being a happy guy.
you do have Jaden Ballard winning the Blitnikoff this year, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but I do have him taking a punt return for a touchdown this year. But
You know what? I swear to God, if Jaden Ballard returns a punt return for a touchdown this year, I'm going to be absolutely beside myself.
yeah,
He has no
I feel
business
like I need
being
to
back
put up
there
a prop
returning
bet.
punts. He has no business back there returning punts for us. None.
I feel like you and I need to have like a bet, like on our show between the two of us. Like we'll have to come up with something funny. Like we'll meet and you get like in Cincinnati or something. You get to pie me in the face.
Well,
If he doesn't,
if he has a punt return for a touchdown, his fair catch at the 5-yard line, will be a 10-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right. So I wanted to ask you then, like we talked and touched on James Laurinitus. He obviously comes in, flips the room on its head. Big things coming for the linebacker room this year. More people coming in the linebacker class. Larry Johnson, doing his thing. But you brought up Malik Atrey. And so I was I'm curious because other people are curious. Your perspective on the Autry thing, because Steve Wiltfong came out and basically said that, Ohio State would be the people he would most watch to flip Autry. So are you buying that hype, or is this just all like he wants more in the McDonald's bag?
No, I'm buying it, man. I think there's a lot to the smoke. For him to announce that he's going to be at the Ohio State Michigan game this far in advance, the same weekend as the Iron Bowl. Now, a lot of people argue that he's probably been at the Iron Bowl. This would probably be his 18th time at the Iron Bowl. If he's an 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot to it, man. I think that Alan Clark, along with Larry Johnson's, history, has really caught a lot of these guys by attention this year. And for whatever reason, we've kind of rebounded. We have a strong D-line class right now. I do know that we're, spending some money in the trenches. So, but I think he legitimately is torn. And I can't imagine what it's like for a kid like that who grew up 15 minutes from the Auburn campus and has people that work in the administration and, we've talked about it before, what it would be like to pull somebody like him, but I think it's real. He doesn't hide his his desire or his affinity for Ohio State. I mean, he's really in on us.
Yep.
And the word on the street is that we could see a decommitment from him within the next couple of weeks. I don't think it's a flip necessarily, but there is talk about him decommitting within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And on the heels of that,
things back up again.
Yeah, I could see that. On the heels of that, you have the David Sanders information that came out that, his commitment is in mid-August. And there was kind of some funny posts from some Clemson people saying that Ohio State was a distant fourth. And I even went back and because I had bookmarked one. And it looked like Sanders left Clemson. Yeah, Clemson left. He left Clemson off his list.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. He dropped his top 7, and Nebraska wasn't on there. And now he's dropped the top 4, and Nebraska's on there. And Clemson's not. So I mean, that was very, unless the kid is just trolling all of college football, which I don't think that's his style. It's interesting. It shows me that the family is truly, evaluating the pros and cons of every opportunity out there. All reports is that we knocked it out of the park with his family. His sister apparently is really into volleyball. I've heard some reports that she's a star volleyball player. I don't know if that's true, but they got the
Mm-hmm.
women's volleyball team to, come and take her over to the arena and play some volleyball when she was there. And, they set up meetings with the medical school, the orthopedic surgeons over at is it Wexler
Yeah, Wexler Medical
Medical
Center. Yeah.
Center? So I'll tell you what though, man, there's a really, really, really weird vibe with Nebraska. For them to be on the list, there's reports out there that them pulling Raiola was really eye-opening to him. It prompted him to take a visit on Mother's Day weekend. He's only been out there once. You have to think if distance is truly a factor, like we've always been told it was in his recruitment, that would pretty much eliminate him. But like I told Juck, if he's on the list, then distance not an issue.
Right.
It's
yeah. I mean, I didn't give much credence to Nebraska until I saw him on them on the finals list. And Matt Rule's a heck of a football coach. I just don't know. And I know that there's been some information that people are really dumping some money into the Nebraska football program to help them. And Nebraska, had their big run in the 80s and 70s and 80s. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to discount them just because like that's such an outlier. It's like when you see Rutgers, although I shouldn't use Rutgers anymore. I'll also use Maryland on somebody's Final Four. You're like, Maryland, why? But Rutgers is having a heck of a recruiting class. So yeah, I still feel good about David Sanders. And if Fry would swing and miss on this one with everything that we know about what they're giving for the trenches, see ya.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about that for a sec?
Yeah.
I tweeted a very sarcastic tweet the other day asking folks if they think it's productive to flame somebody's position coach if they're considering the school. And I mean, listen, I get it. Justin Fry's been under a lot of scrutiny. I think that there's a recency bias with that Missouri game. I do not think that was his fault. I think the decision to sit Carson Hinsman because of his podcast episode and then moving Matthew Jones over to center, I think it was, and putting Enoch at guard was an absolute disaster. I'm not sure that was his call. I don't think it was. I think our offensive line played a lot better last year, especially along the way than people give them credit for. It was shaky at first, but that drive that we had to score up the game at, tie up the game at 17 against Michigan, they kicked Michigan's butt on that drive. I mean, they were blowing them off the line of scrimmage. So having said that, I do agree that he needs to earn his chops from a recruiting standpoint. I think it's interesting that people expect us to pull. It's just a different position, man. Like, old linemen like to stay close to home. And I don't know if just because we're Ohio State, we should automatically pull a couple 5-stars from anywhere in the country on the offensive line. It's just different. Now, I'm saying all of this because when a recruit such as David Sanders posts his Final Four and then people go in there and start flaming Justin Fry, like, do you really think that helps? Like, do you think that does anything to encourage the kid to want to choose that school? Now, fortunately, you're dealing with a really smart family and kid, and I'm sure they just discount a lot of the knuckleheads that they see online and on social media, but I just don't get it. And like, I don't understand it. The motive there. It's idiotic. It's stupid. And it makes everybody look like they're petulant brats.
Yep. Very true. I also saw along with that, I'm not like switching gears, I'm just switching players on the offensive line, that Ohio State is suddenly a dark horse for Josh Petty.
I mean, according to who?
Steve Wiltfong. clickbait.
I have zero
but
trust. I have zero trust in Steve Wiltfong, and then I saw also that other knucklehead Andrew Smith posted it. I don't even want to say his name, but I mean, maybe. I mean,
yeah,
maybe. I don't know. I mean, that would be a really big surprise. The kid's 250. So he's got a
yeah,
long. No matter where he goes, he's got a long way to go to being anywhere close to
yeah,
ready. No matter how talented he is right now.
yeah. So it was still Steve Wiltfong because I follow the Scarlet and Gray podcast because they tend to be out with leading news too, like we are on Twitter, and they reposted the same thing. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It is what it is.
those
But
guys
yeah,
are
he's
solid too. I don't. Sorry, man. Those guys are solid over there at Scarlet and Gray.
yeah, they are.
I'm
They're
in a
good
chat group
people.
with chat group with Tyler, and he's not a fan of my affinity for Dustin Brown or Devin Brown rather. He doesn't understand it, but those guys are good guys. They're on top of things and they do things well.
Yeah. So our last little recruiting nugget here, and Dan, I don't think we're going to get to our Wisconsin thing because I'm going to be pressed up against time. But our last little recruiting thing was the nugget that I sent you around top 10 quarterbacks. So On3, who would, oh God, they're such trash. I hate On3 so much. Comes out with Bryce Underwood at 1, which we knew, but then Matt Zollers jumps Tavian St. Clair. And I wanted to tell people, I wanted to show this, and they have Deuce Night 4. And some of this, like Julian Lewis drops to 7. Like it's super, just god awful, terrible On3 trash, because I'm sure Tavian told them no to one of their 7-on-7s or something, and they got all butthurt about it. But Dan, I know you've elaborated and taught me something, but tell us a little bit about how these stupid rankings work for people because of the tournaments and stuff.
It's very political, right? And if you give somebody from a recruiting agency an answer that they don't want, or you choose to go to an all-star game affiliated with a different recruiting service, you're gonna get dinged. But this one, man, I gotta be honest, this one really, really surprised me. Like, you just got done with the summer camp circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Tavian was I want to say was it Rivals, or maybe even it was On3's. He might have been On3's
It was
Alpha
On3's.
Dog. It was On3's Alpha Dog at the Elite 11. He was the MVP the first 2 days of the Elite 11, and then he had a less than desirable showing in the 7-on-7. So he lost out on the Rivals, Elite 11 final champion. But there's videos out there of On3 talking about how he's making a push to be number 1 overall. He goes to other camps and is the MVP of other camps, and then this Matt Zollers kid goes ahead and jumps him in their rankings. Like, I didn't hear his name all summer from anything. So that's just,
and here we are talking about it.
And here we are talking about it. And it's a perfect example as to how these recruiting ranking services have ulterior motives. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but they just came out with re-rankings, and almost every Ohio State kid dropped in the rankings.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Almost every single one of them. The only one I think that got elevated was Brady Lennon. He's now got his 4th star. But almost every other recruit has dropped. It's bizarre to me. It's, everybody needs to remember that online social media with companies like that, it's all about engagement and clicks and stuff like that. And, it's sort of like Wiltfong putting a crystal ball in for Will Conroy out of St. Ignatius to go to Oregon this far in advance. Like, that was 100% about engagement. That's all it was.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep track of that one too, and see how many times he changes it.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you guys on Friday. Dan's on vacation. I'm not. So you guys have a great week. Stay safe out there. And
Are we
as
with
always,
Dave on Friday?
go Bucks. Oh, yeah.